Welcome to A Year of War and Peace. I'm your host, Brian E. Denton. A Year of War and Peace is a daily, year-long, chapter-by-chapter reading of and meditation on Leo Tolstoy's epic novel, War and Peace. In these videos and podcasts, you'll be treated to a free reading of one chapter per day of the novel, plus a reflective essay I've written individually tailored to that day's chapter. These readings are offered for free, though if you'd like to support me, you can do so in one of three ways. First, you could purchase my ebook, A Year of War and Peace. It features the entire novel, plus all of my reflective essays, and it's only $2.99 on Amazon.com. You could also become a patron at patreon.com/Brian E. Denton. If you sign up there, you'll receive a sonnet once a month, plus a link to an ebook of my collected sonnets. Finally, if you like, you can make a one-time donation to my PayPal account. The email there is brianedenton@gmail.com. You can also use that email to contact me. I'd be happy to hear from you. Your support is greatly appreciated. Today's reading and reflection is on Chapter 41. Chapter 41. Having ridden round the whole line from right flank to left, Prince Andrew made his way up to the battery from which the staff officer had told him the whole field could be seen. Here he dismounted and stopped beside the farthest of the four unlimbered cannon. Before the guns, an artillery sentry was pacing up and down. He stood at attention when the officer arrived, but at a sign resumed his measured, monotonous pacing. Behind the guns were the limbers, and still further back picket ropes and artillerymen's bonfires. To the left, not far from the farthest cannon, was a small, newly constructed wattle shed from which the sound of officers' voices and eager conversation came. It was true that a view over nearly the whole Russian position and the greater part of the enemy's opened out from this battery. Just facing it, on the crest of the opposite hill, the village of Schöngraben could be seen, and in three places to left and right the French troops amid the smoke of their campfires, the greater part of whom were evidently in the village itself and behind the hill. To the left from that village, amid the smoke, was something resembling a battery, but it was impossible to see it clearly with the naked eye. Our right flank was posted on a rather steep incline which dominated the French position. Our infantry were stationed there, and at the furthest point the dragoons. In the center, where Tushin's battery stood and from which Prince Andrew was surveying the position, was the easiest and most direct descent and ascent to the brook separating us from Schöngraben. On the left our troops were close to a copse, in which smoked the bonfires of our infantry, who were felling wood. The French line was wider than ours, and it was plain that they could easily outflank us on both sides. Behind our position was a steep and deep dip, making it difficult for artillery and cavalry to retire. Prince Andrew took out his notebook and, leaning on the cannon, sketched a plan of the position. He made some notes on 2 points, intending to mention them to Bagration. His idea was, first to concentrate all the artillery in the center, and secondly, to withdraw the cavalry to the other side of the dip. Prince Andrew, being always near the commander-in-chief, closely followed the mass movements and general orders, and constantly studying historical accounts of battles, involuntarily pictured to himself the course of events and the forthcoming action in broad outline. He imagined only important possibilities. If the enemy attacks the right flank, he said to himself, the Kiev Grenadiers and the Poltsek Chasseurs must hold their position till reserves from the center come up. In that case, the dragoons could successfully make out a flank counterattack. If they attack our center, we, having the center battery on this high ground, shall withdraw to the left flank under the cover and retreat to a dip by the echelons. So he reasoned. All the time he had been beside the gun, he had heard the voices of the officers distinctly, but as often happens, had not understood a word of what they were saying. Suddenly, however, he was struck by a voice coming from the shed, and its tone was so sincere that he could not help but listen. "No, friend," said a pleasant voice, as it seemed to Prince Andrew, a familiar voice. "What I say is that if it were possible to know what is beyond death, none of us would be afraid of it. That's so, friend." Another, a younger voice, interrupted him. "Afraid or not, you can't escape it anyhow." "All the same, one is afraid." "Oh, you clever people," said a third manly voice, interrupting them. "Of course, you artillerymen are very wise because you can take everything along with you, vodka and snacks." And the owner of the manly voice, evidently an infantry officer, laughed. "Yes, one is afraid," continued the first speaker, he of the familiar voice. "One is afraid of the unknown. That's what it is." Whatever we may say about the soul going to the sky, we know there is no sky, but only an atmosphere. The manly voice again interrupted the artillery officer. Well, some of you are vodka, Tushin, it said. Why, thought Prince Andrew, that's the captain, who stood up to the sutler's hut without his boots. He recognized the agreeable, philosophizing voice with pleasure. Some herb vodka, certainly, said Tushin. But still, to conceive a future life. He did not finish. Just then, there was a whistle in the air, nearer and nearer, faster and louder, louder and faster, a cannonball, as if it had not finished saying what was necessary, thudded into the ground near the shed with superhuman force, throwing up a mass of earth. The ground seemed to groan at the terrible impact. And immediately Tushin, with a short pipe in the corner of his mouth, and his kind, intelligent face rather pale, rushed out of the shed, followed by the owner of the manly voice, a dashing infantry officer, who hurried off to his company, buttoning up the coat as he ran. All right, that concludes chapter 41 of War and Peace. Here is my reflection on the same. A Year of War and Peace, Day 41. Plans and Anti-Plans. Today's reading is one of the shortest in the novel. It starts by showcasing more of Prince Andrew's diligence and intelligence. He has just completed his survey of the Russian and French troops, and he immediately turns to planning for any contingency of action the French may take. He relies on historical analysis of past battles, the positions of the troops, and his own intuition. His brilliant thoughts are interrupted, however, when he overhears a nearby conversation. It's Tushin and some other Russian troops. They're discussing death. Get used to that. Death is a major topic in War and Peace, and also, therefore, in A Year of War and Peace. As the men discuss death, Death's agent, in the form of a French cannonball, lands just outside their tent, and the Battle of Schorngraben is on. In this chapter, the conversation about death centers around the questions of why men are afraid of death. One conversant offers that it's the uncertainty about what is beyond death that frightens men. Another says that afterlife, or no afterlife, death's check is in the mail, so why fret? I like this. So does Marcus Aurelius. Daily Meditation. Death is an operation of nature, and if anyone is afraid of an operation of nature, he is a child. Marcus Aurelius, Meditations. All right, thanks a lot for joining me for my reading and reflection on chapter 41 of War and Peace. I hope you liked it. Remember that if you'd like to support me, you can do so either by purchasing the ebook, A Year of War and Peace, becoming a patron at patreon.com, or making a one-time donation at PayPal. The links to all that are below. Tomorrow we will be reading and reflecting on chapter 42 of War and Peace. I hope you join me then. Until then, take care of yourselves and of others.